people that may not be able to join us right now, but we do want to get them the recording of this call. It is a pleasure to have you all here. I just got off a division manager meeting, and man, it was awesome. And I've got the second half of that meeting tomorrow, and really excited about where our region is headed. I was saying this in key staff today that we are currently the number one region in the company in new business for 2025. And we are the number one number one division in the company in per office performance, right? Per office. The only reason we're not number one overall in total business is other region has way more CSP business. You know, the guys and girls that are making 50% commission selling hundreds and even, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars in a day, let alone a week, and things like that. They have more firepower in that sense, and they have more offices. That's the only reason. They have more offices and more CSPs. That's why they're number one in total business, but we're still number one in new business, and we're way over any other region in the company in total office per office performance. What does that mean? If there's a region in the company that any office, any division, any manager would want to be in, it's the central region. So one, you're in the best region in the company. Two, you are actually on the right team. Our division was the number 4 team building division in Vector in 2024, and we only had 6 offices. To 5 last year. We have 6 this year, and we were the number 4 division in the company. Again, you hear this at every team meeting, because in recruiting or team building and in sales, we have a 4 office division currently, and we're like number 12 in the company in total business, number 7 in new business. And in team building, we were the number 4 division in the company against divisions that had 20 some offices in the summer. And we wound up number 4 in the company with 5 offices. So if there's a team to be on, it's not only the central region, it's the Intermountain Division. And I love the fact that I can say that Salt Lake City was number 2 in the company the last 2 years in a row. Jesse was number 4, I think 2 years in a row or something like that. Southern Rockies, maybe you're number 5 last year or number 4 the year before that. And Bucky was number 7 as a new manager. If I'm inaccurate in some of those exact numbers, I apologize. And again, some of the best results in the company are here in this division. And it's so freaking awesome to have you guys be on our team. Okay, because what does that mean? It means if you're going to be an assistant manager, you want to be in our division. And if you're going to be an assistant manager, that means you could earn more money, have a better experience, offer a better experience, right? And just have a more, better training for the future of what could be a really awesome career. When I say career, it's my career for 31 years. It's Jesse's career since 2015. So come this September, it's going to be his 10-year mark in our company. Jesse's almost produced $5 million in business, and he had years that he was an assistant manager, a representative, and stuff like that. What am I off on the numbers of millions? Did I make a mistake? Did I say it 5.3 already? Okay, good. All right, 3 million this year, Jesse. I'm just kidding. From the chat. Okay. So anyway, we're really excited about training our next staff. What I will tell you is that the assistant manager role is a training role. And you've heard this if you were at TLA meetings already. Some of you have never been to TLA. Some of you guys don't even know how to spell TLA. And that's a joke. Okay, but some of you have never been to a TLA meeting. Some of you understand the acronym is the Leadership Academy, TLA, the Leadership Academy. Leadership Academy is where I grew as a young man, myself as an 18.9-year-old. Before I went on my mission, I remember being a district leader on my mission, teaching a district meeting from a Vector newsletter. Like I pulled out the Vector newsletter and taught Cutco stuff to the missionaries, right? And then I came home from the mission, gained a lot from that, but then did really exciting things as a sales rep, as an assistant manager. And I remember the lives that I impacted as an assistant manager in Illinois, in Chicago, when I first was an assistant manager. And then when I was an assistant manager, obviously in Salt Lake City, to this day, I still have relationships with people that I never trained. I was the assistant manager. And I still have relationships with those people to this day, texting, calls, whatever it is. And it's really just a great position. It is a subordinate position. where you're not the man or the woman in charge. You're actually at the subordinate desire, say whatever you want to call it, mandate of your district manager or branch manager if you're going to be an assistant manager in a branch office. But you're somewhat not the boss, but at the same time, you want to take ownership. So if you're taking notes right now, I would write down that one, the assistant manager role is a training role. It's a training where you can develop into a branch or district manager. When I say a career, it doesn't mean you sign your life over, sign the next decade over, 5 years. Patrick's been here 5 years. Jesse's been here 10 years almost. I've been here 31 years. That doesn't mean you're going to be here more than 2 or 3 years. But I'll tell you, one of my old district managers, Josh Thielbar, at an SC2 conference one year, he stood up in his message and basically said that everyone who ever has a rep number, raise your hand if you have a rep number. Okay, you have a rep number? Okay, he said everyone that has a rep number should at least run a branch at one point in their career in Cutco. He really felt that strongly that whether you became a year-round district manager at all, everyone that has a rep number should at least at one point run a branch office for Vector Marketing. I love the fact that Jesse ran a branch, closed his office, came back to finish his senior year of college, and then he was had Patrick's job, a division office manager, and then he went out as a district manager. I love the fact that Patrick was an assistant manager at 3 different points in 3 different offices. First in the not Costa Mesa, but whatever office it was, with another manager, then 2 years on a mission, then came back to California, was an assistant manager again, then moved out to Salt Lake or to Utah and Logan, was an assistant manager, and then ran a branch office. I love that Bucky ran a branch office in 2003. Right. And then he was gone from the company for 18 years and still had a great career. And he knew he could come back when he was disenchanted and wanted to move on from the counseling career that he had for 18 years. He decided to come back to Vector, and he knew he had an opportunity because he knew that from 20 years prior or 18 years prior. And I love that the assistant manager role is such a great training role. It's a subordinate role. If you didn't write it down, write down subordinate role. And it's a fulfilling role. And you kind of get to have dual responsibility and dual income, right? Dual responsibility and dual income. You're responsible to the office and to the humans. And I'll tell you right now, guys, I work harder because I'm responsible to you. If it was just me, I could sleep in, I could take a bad day. Do you guys understand? Like, I love being accountable to Jesse, to Patrick, to Bucky, to Shay. I love that I get to be accountable to Connor and to Anthony, that they're getting ready to run their branch offices this summer. And I take it really seriously. Basically, a month from now, my whole job as a division manager, besides supporting our managers that will run offices this summer, my whole job is to train every one of you that becomes an assistant manager to be in a position of choice to not only run an office, but to run an absolutely awesome office. I can't say it, but to run an awesome office where you offer a great opportunity to a bunch of representatives in XYZ town and XYZ zip codes, XYZ state. Solid, liquid, gas, or plasma. I'm just kidding. Okay. Right. But I want to make sure you guys understand that my responsibility moving forward, once we get into where you are promoted to be an assistant manager, my responsibility is to help you have a great experience as an assistant, which means you're giving a great experience to your district manager, to yourself, and to the people you will serve as assistant manager. But then also put you in a position to have great results when you move up in the business to a branch and or district manager position. So it's really awesome to have you guys here. And Jesse, the agenda is on the slideshow, which I have in slideshow mode. So I'll cover it unless you want me to cover this slide. You made the slide, so I'm letting you take the reins if you choose, wherever.
Sure. Yeah, I can take that. One sec.
You want me to pull it up? No, I'm happy to go through this slide. I just know that you created them. And I'm like, I got to pull up this exact document here. That's what I'll do. I'll pull it up without being in slideshow mode. Okay. So I can fully look at my agenda as I had it in slideshow mode. All right. So here, and here.
Yeah, I can give a quick overview while we
Go for it.
Okay. There we go. Thank you. Okay. So I want to start from how do I put this? The 1,000-foot view here, like a macro perspective on what we're trying to accomplish as an office, as leaders in the Intermountain Division and in our organization. So, my job, Phil's job, Bucky's job, as a district manager is to recruit, train, and develop a sales team. That's what we get paid to do, Bell. So, uh, and to develop FSMs, so people that sell Cutco above Dirty 30 that are selling Cutco, quite a bit of Cutco, and to develop field offices because that's how we grow our company is by having an office in every territory. In fact, Phil mentioned earlier that the central region is really the place to be, Ashley, because we have per on a per office basis, we're one of the highest producing regions. The Southwest Division or Southwest region, excuse me, just happens to have a higher number of offices. But if we had the same number of offices that Southwest region has, we'd be mopping the floor with them. And that is the objective. Silver or like Central region will be one of the Silver Cup or will be a Silver Cup region um, in the next decade, I project. That's just me or earlier. So what is your job as an assistant manager? Okay, so I want to get really clear on like, what is your job? Your job is to help in the activities of recruiting. We'll talk about that, helping the activities of training and developing the team. And your job as as an assistant manager is to lead and sell a lot of Cutco, make yourself a lot of money, AJ, and also to be the person that proves that the concept is true. Does everybody follow that? How many of you have ever doubted, maybe even like at this moment, like you've doubted, like, does this program work? Does selling Cutco actually work, right? Does getting recommendations even work? Are people actually, Adriana, that's your job. That's your job as an assistant manager is to show that the concept works because it does. We know it works, and obviously we wouldn't be around as a company if our programs didn't work and work for our people. But there's something that I learned once in a leadership workshop was that a leader without a first follower is just a random individual like dancing in the middle of a field. Somebody follow that? Like there has to be somebody following in order for somebody to be leading, and then other people join in and help with that. Yeah, it's an awesome YouTube. Phil knows what I'm talking about. Um, but that's your job. Okay, so that's what we are looking for is people to help with those activities. So let's get a little bit more specific. And Phil mentioned this, assistant managers, they are a shareholder in the office success because you do get paid a percentage off of the office. So sometimes, Jens, the activities that you do, right, are not exactly correlated in like an hourly perspective, but it assists the office in helping more people sell Cutco, which means you're gonna get paid more. So something that's important to understand is that there is a recruiting funnel. So I would draw this out, by the way. I'd write that down. There's a recruiting funnel. Every organization on this earth has a recruiting funnel. And I didn't understand this when I was brand new. Right? It doesn't matter if it's a college football team. It doesn't matter if it's a university. It doesn't matter if it's Google. It doesn't matter if it's your dad's carpet cleaning company. Every organization has a recruiting funnel. Okay. So here's the way the recruiting funnel works for us. We advertise that the position is available with our company. How many of you heard about us through an online job website? Cool. Great. Who heard about us because a friend recommended you? Awesome. Who heard about us on social media or like a social media of a friend? Cool. Who heard about us through through campus, through college campus? Awesome, Jens. Me too. Right. And so those are ways that we advertise the position. So first and foremost, if we're going to get representatives, we got to advertise we have positions available. Now, is everybody that sees the advertisement going to apply? No, not necessarily, but that's what we got to do. All right. Then the people who are interested, how many of you at some point in your vector career got scheduled for an interview? That's all of you because y'all went through training, right? So there's the moving the needle from point A to point B, getting somebody who's interested to being scheduled for an interview. And then we got to conduct an interview. How many of you have gone through an interview? Great. What did that person do? They walked you through the details of the position. They explained what it would be, what training would be like. And then, by the way, did everybody who said they were going to show up to the interview show up to the interview? Nope. Welcome to working with 18 to 25-year-olds. Now, you guys showed up, so I know that's kind of weird for you sometimes that people would like blow off a job interview, but people do it all the time. Right? So not everybody that's in, they get scheduled for an interview actually shows up. And even people who get scheduled for training who get accepted, do you think that every single person that said that they were going to do the job ended up actually going through and doing the job? No, some people got sick, some people changed their minds, some people realized that they were overstressed with their school schedule or whatever the situation was. All right. So again, that's why we have this funnel. And then when we run the interviews and we schedule people for training, then we run training. By the way, did everybody in your training class make it all the way through training? No, life happens. So not everybody makes it all the way through training, and that's okay. And then we launch representatives with demos booked and they sell Cutco. Now, by the way, did everybody who launched from training like sell $10,000 worth of Cutco in their fast start or in their career? No, not that either, right? So again, that's why there's a recruiting funnel, and it's okay to understand that throughout this process that some people are going to decide it's not for them, whether it's after the interview or whether it's after training, whatever the case is. However, the bigger we make the top of that funnel, the bigger the bottom's going to be. Somebody follow that? So Jay, it's kind of like if a college football team, we use football sports analogies a lot because there's a lot of similarities to sales. But let's say a college football team wants to put together a really awesome team. How many people are on a football team? I don't even know. Like including special teams and everybody, is it like what, 25, 30
Like
people?
50 plus.
50
It's like
plus. Okay. So if a football coach, if he needs to replace his team, if he only talks to 50 people, is all 50, he goes and scouts out, the local high schools, the all across the nation. If he only talks to 50 people, is he going to replace his whole team? No. How many people does a college football coach or like scouts talk to? They got their eyeballs on hundreds of people. Does everybody follow that? So that's our job. Our job is actually to generate thousands of what we call touches, if you want to write that down. And touches are people hearing about the position and applying for the job. Touches. So in all of your office, the idea is to generate thousands of people who have heard about the job in your territory of like 500,000 people. Does everybody follow that? And there's a number of ways we do this, and Phil can outline those. So that's the first part is we got to get people on the team. We'll come back to that in a second. And then there's other things that an assistant manager's job is to do. How many of you have ever done PDI with your manager? And they said, hey, when are you going to make phone calls? And, and they helped you out with, hey, this is how you get recommendations. So we need help with our teams. Our teams are going to grow. And so assistant managers get to help PDI people. PC, how many of you have ever had a one-on-one coaching call with your manager? Right? They sat down and helped you make a schedule or pick a goal. We need you to help do that with people this summer. How many of you have ever been to a team meeting and seen somebody give a message? Listen, like as much as Phil and I are really good at talking, people are actually, they want to hear from you because it's actually a lot more impactful, AJ, when you get up there and you're like, hey, just so you know, if you don't believe you can get recommendations, I was where you're at right now. And you know what? I memorized the recommendations approach and I started getting recommendations. Here's why you should do that too. That holds a lot more weight than me just telling somebody they should memorize that. Does everybody follow that? Oh, by the way, do you think in giving a message at team meeting, you're probably going to increase your communication skills? Who'd be increasing the public speaking skills? You get to practice that. Your manager gives you feedback. And we have key staff, we have conferences, and like Phil said, we have the Leadership Academy. So these are all activities that assistant managers have their fingers in, so to speak, that they're involved in certain capacities. Some in certain capacities more than others. Okay, transparently. But what we look for are hard workers. We look for people that are loyal, people that are going to have a growth mindset, that are open to advancement opportunities, that want to help other people succeed. That's a fun part of the job is you get paid to help other people crush it, and that are on time and that are willing to put in great effort. So, and there's all sorts of other benefits that we can talk about at another time of leadership skills, emotional management skills. You build your resume. Like sales rep is great, but having management on your resume is incredibly helpful. Time management, being part of a winning team, you get more time with your district manager and your division manager because you're at a little bit more of an elevated position, a lot more of an elevated position. So I'll let Phil take back the screen. But that is what we're looking for.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, did when I showed the funnel, did it show up or no?
It did. Yep.
Okay, good.
You showed it and I took
And
it
then
back.
you took it back. Okay, perfect. Okay, that's awesome. As we've been talking, I want to point out that the top of the funnel, I'm going to come back to that for a minute, guys, is really key. And if you didn't notice the difference, right? This is when we're getting people set for interviews, right? And how many of you were scheduled for an interview by some human being or a text or something that you didn't know who they were, but they scheduled you for interviews? Right? You guys remember that? Someone scheduled me for an interview, right? 31 years ago. And I'm glad someone did that. I wouldn't be here today. Jesse may not be here today. Bucky, Patrick, Shay, any of you might not be here today if someone hadn't scheduled me for an interview. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? Like from an impact standpoint, someone scheduling me for an interview could have prevented at least a portion of $45 million in Cutco sales, right? Someone else would have filled my role, likely, had I not shown up to my interview. But the first step, right, AJ, is that we got to fill the funnel. So I'm going to go and make that change again. Look at that. If we do a great job here creating touches by going on campus, and, I did a job fair. That's why Jesse's here today, right? I did that job fair for like the last 15, 20 years. Since 2006, when I moved our office to Salt Lake, I've done that job fair. What is that? 18 years I've done that job fair. And I recruited $4 or $5 million district managers just from doing one job fair each year for 18 years. I'm really glad I did that job fair. How many of you guys can understand that? Shay wouldn't be here if I hadn't done that job fair because her manager was recruited at that job fair. So the first thing is we got to get more people in the funnel and schedule them for interviews. And then we go from there to the interview. How many guys were interviewed by the manager, right? Some of you are running, raise your hand if you are running interviews. So Ashley's running interviews. I don't know if Aaron is. I know Adriana for sure is. Abby is. Some of you are running interviews. Patrick is. Obviously, the district managers are. The next thing is that we get majority of the people that show up to the interview to stay for the interview and be accepted for the job. By the way, some of you might think that's weird. How many of you guys think it's a little weird that like Cutco actually tries to recruit everybody? Who thinks that's a little bit weird? Well, guys, it's actually one of the coolest things about this business because I was talking to Calvin's parents actually at lunch the other day. And it's like, listen, some people start the job and on a scale of where they're at in their like social skills, look at me guys on my hands. On the social skill level, they're like here. And our job, look at me, is to get them to like here. But there's some people that start the job that are like already here. And our job is to get them to here. It's literally like the parable of the talents, right? And that's why I have total conviction and pride in a good way, righteous pride, that we do give people an opportunity to grow as a human. It isn't about the knives, is it? What's the name of the podcast? Changing Lives, Selling Knives. There's a poster in I think every office you've been in that says it's not about the knives, it's about the lives, and it's really the knives that are the vehicle to changing people's lives. I didn't mean to rhyme that much, but I just did. Okay. After the interview, then what did Jesse just show you? You're training the launch reps and you're coaching and you're like big brother, big sister to the people that launch from training, helping them sell more, showing them how to sell more. That's why we need assistant managers that know how to sell. I'll make a point. Excuse me. Well, Patrick did too, but Anthony, Connor, and Staley were three of our top assistant managers last summer. Two of them are running an office. The only reason Staley isn't running a top branch office this summer is he took 2 semesters and studied abroad in Europe and in South America. He's likely to be an assistant manager within the next few weeks. Probably be on this call in a couple weeks, right? He's back from Venezuela or whatever the heck he is, somewhere in South America, Bolivia, I can't remember. Okay. The assistant manager, but going back to the top of the funnel, now look at my screen again. The funnel getting bigger at the top is like number one job, kind of, right? It's called fire number. And what fire number is anyone we set for an interview, schedule for interview by a manager. So you guys know that I wouldn't be here today if someone didn't schedule me for my interview. None of us would be here today if someone didn't schedule us for an interview. So the job of an assistant manager, besides the coaching and all that stuff and developing yourself and developing other people, is to get people in the funnel and schedule them for the interview. And then it would be to run those interviews. And then it would be to coach the reps that do launch from training, right? We got 15 minutes to go roughly. And one of the ways that we as a team, how many of you guys would love to run a bigger, like if you're an assistant manager this summer, would you like your office to sell less Cutco or more Cutco? More Cutco, right? Duh, right? You'll get paid more. more lives will be impacted, right? More people will get the opportunity, look at me guys, again, to go from here to here on the talent skill level, and more will be available to go from here to here, right? If we get more people, quote, in the funnel in the business, right? And so you can see individuals that last year were scheduling people for interviews. Let me get to the next slide, actually, just to make it easier. Individually, we're looking for people who schedule a lot of people for interviews. And yeah, look over here on the left-hand side. This is the number that our top fire number managers booked last summer. So in the summer, Brady Anderson in the Omaha office, he booked 600 people for interviews. By the way, their office won the Silver Cup. Avery, you were in Chicago. You saw Tyler accept the Silver Cup. One of the biggest reasons why they won the Silver Cup is because Brady alone impacted that result. By the way, 2 years ago, Bucky Homestead was #1 in the Central Region. He booked 1,000 people for interviews. Gee, I wonder why we had our biggest year ever and we're #2 in the company by literally the last 2 weeks of the year was the only reason we got beat, right? And he booked 1,000 people for interviews as an assistant manager, and now he's one of the top district managers in the company.
That's because you promoted me, Phil.
I
You
know.
kept me there.
I promoted you 1 month
You
early.
should have promoted me.
1 month early,
Yeah.
I promoted you, and if I wouldn't have promoted you, we wouldn't been #1. Oh, dang it, that hurts. That hurts. By the way, Patrick, no slouch, right? And again, that was the last year. Okay, let me just do this. I'll skip these extra slides. Okay. And actually, I'm not going to show any more of these slides. Okay, so for timing's sake, what I'm going to say is, as we're building our team, there's a couple things I wanted to mention, and that is assistant manager. Right, I'm going to go to this browser. Excuse me. Remember, I said I was on 2 different browsers. Okay, so I want to point out a couple of things about the flow of the summer. Okay, so if you want to write down summer flow, as is the case, we're not a startup company, but branch managers essentially are running a startup branch of a company. Patrick, Bucky and Shay were startup managers when they first opened their office. Is everyone with me on that? When they first opened, they're like kind of a startup member of a 75-year-old company leading its industry, but they're still starting from scratch. Well, the summer we have an interesting thing, and that is at the end of finals, everybody all of a sudden needs a job. And all those people that need a job are looking for a really good job. Good can be relative. Maybe they want to be a summer camp counselor, FSY, impacts people. Some people just want to make a crap ton of money, right? Some people want to get out of freaking fast food and labor jobs. And all of those people want to make twice as much money, work maybe 3 times, 4 times as much money, and work twice as hard in the summer because they might have literally semesters to pay for, missions to pay for, cars, weddings, debts to society, whatever they have to pay for. They need to make way more money. And they weren't working in the spring in the semester. So in the beginning, we call it gold period. Okay, so write down the gold or golden period, and it's about 6 weeks in our division. The 6 weeks in our division that we call the gold are like early May to mid-June, or maybe like second week of May to the third week of June, if you will. And those 6 weeks, we need the hardest working assistant manager staff because that's the team building phase of the summer. And then we recruit as many people as we can. And let me just make the analogy with my hands. If I'm trying to hold a bunch of sand like this, am I going to get very much of that sand to stay? Now, if I do this, will I get more? Yes. But if I take Patrick, show me your hands. And if I take Patrick's hands and put Patrick's hands under my hands, and then I take Avery's hands, Ashley's hands, Jen's hands, AJ's hands, and we add and Calvin's hands, all those hands together, can we hold basically all the sand? We actually can. And I'll make that analogy because if we let people slip through the cracks, do you understand my analogy now? If reps start the job, don't get enough support, right? Will they slip through the cracks? And then they don't really get a really awesome experience in Cutco. But if we have a crew of assistant managers, Salt Lake City, Provo, Southern Rockies, Salt Lake North, that can help the help the district manager and branch managers hold those people in the fire, in the hands, keep them keep them close, so to speak, and get them coached up right, get them supported. Because once again, Avery, we recruit 2 to 3 times as many people. Put it to you this way, in 2023, we built a team of 440 people. 200 of them were in the summer. The other 200 plus were in the semester, but 200 of them were in the summer. So twice as many reps, maybe 3 times as many reps, typically, as most offices experience, happen or get recruited, get brought into the team in the summer. So we are really looking to get our assistant manager staff ready for the summer of 2025. And if those people are on board, ready to support, but I want to point out that 6 weeks, it's like really dang hard. And it's hard because we're dealing with so many humans, and we're trying to get as many in the funnel and gather our team together. And then if we support them really well with assistant managers, what happens is they make it through those quit moments. Who's had the quit moments? You're like, I don't know if I can do this job. I don't know if I can handle this. I don't know if, by the way, managers have them, assistant managers have them. We all have them. Everybody has them. It's part of life. You don't think doctors want to quit sometimes? Teachers might want to quit sometimes. Business owners want to quit. Even governmental elected officials want to quit sometimes, and they should. I'm just kidding. Okay, but maybe they should. Maybe they should. But my point is that those moments, if supported properly with quality assistant managers who have done their training, done their, and they have the right mentality about it, they'll push through when it's the hardest, when there's the most humans. Does everyone understand why it's the most humans, May, June? And then when people make it through that quote gauntlet, and then they're going into SC1, Avery, going into SC2, Ashley, and they're going into these big sales competitions, the conference, by the way, Avery, you went to year-end banquet. Adriana, you went to year-end banquet. After year-end banquet, were you like gelled with the team? And were you gelled with the Vector job? Were you gelled with and Aaron went to year-end banquet as well. Of course, Patrick and, Bucky and I, and, and Abby, it's like you really understand Vector when you've been to a year-end banquet and when you've been to a conference. But reps, they say a rep, and this is good for Patrick and Bucky to hear, they say a rep isn't even recruited into Cutco until they come to their first conference. Maybe write that down. A rep isn't even they may have sold $5,000, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000. Some of you have still not been recruited into this team, into the job, because you haven't even been to your first conference yet. But we trust you, and that's why we invited you to be here today as someone that could be of huge impact into our division and the success we want to have. And I hope I'm painting a picture of why we can be one of the top divisions again in 2025 and grow into a top division in 2026. But the assistant managers of 2025 can be the leaders of 2026. And that golden period, those 6-8 weeks or whatever in May and June, will create the team that will create the biggest sales report. So what is income like in May and June? Look at me. Effort is like here. Income isn't there yet. And then as we keep the team, I'm using the word keep on purpose, as we retain that team and train them and encourage them, what happens to sales report? Sales report gets bigger and bigger and bigger, but the hard time of pushing and getting everyone on the team and retained is harder in May and June when the income quite isn't that big. But then as the team is selling more and they're retained more, and assistant managers are making dual income by getting more time to sell, because after those 6 weeks is when assistant managers, their workload goes a little bit down, but the sales report is high. And they're making really good money. And then in SC2 last year, both Anthony Staley and also Anthony and Connor, they were kicked out of the office. They ran one interview a week, and they each sold $15,000 to $24,000. By the way, at every commission level in Cutco, if you sold $15,000 to $24,000 in 3 weeks, and you got 3 paychecks, that equaled about $8,000 in those 3 paychecks. How many of you guys think that'd be a pretty fired up job? But those paychecks weren't happening May and June, right? The effort was happening in May and June, right? But the sales that you personally might experience will be more in June, July, August. So assistant managers will sell more in June, July, August. May and June, they're really diving in with the team. And by the way, if the sales reps are selling more in May, June, or in June, July, August, what's the assistant manager income like in June, July, August? With relation to how much you're working, it's massive. You make really good money when you're not necessarily killing it. in the office, right? You're not killing yourself in the office working so hard because you did that in May and June. And at the end of the summer, if you make $10,000 or $20,000 in the summer, if it worked out where you worked really hard May and June for the office, but in June, July, August, you worked a little bit more in selling, by the end of the summer, you made 5 figures. How many of you guys feel like that'd be a worthwhile summer? Does everyone like get that? But the flow of the summer isn't like X amount of work, X amount of income. It fluctuates, but at the end of the 4 months, you're like, oh man, I've got $10,000 in withholdings. I'm going to Olean, New York, meeting the CEO of the company, and I might be in a branch manager or district manager position next year. I can do that, right? So I hope that gives you some vision, and I got to finish up in 6 minutes or so.
Hey, Phil, I don't know if I told you that, but I met Jim Stint in the elevator at Budapest.
Nice.
So he and his wife were coming in when me and my wife were there. So anyways.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. Of course, you kind of met him in the factory, obviously, a couple times, but to hang out with him in Budapest is also a pretty rewarding experience. And that's after you run your branch. I think you all know this, but branch managers and district managers of each year, they get the opportunity to win trips. So Patrick's won trips to Madrid, Mexico a couple times, 3 times now, and then also Budapest. And Patrick, funny enough, but Bucky was a branch manager, won a trip to Spain, but then went into the Air Force and changed careers. So he didn't go on the trip to Spain in 2003, but just won his first 3 or 4 trips recently with going to San Diego, going to Mexico, and then also Budapest. So pretty awesome experience. So the last couple of things I want to say is we have a couple of calendar events that I want to make sure, and some of you are like, Phil, are you really going to show me this text again? Yes, I'm going to give it to you again. And so I'm going to type it in the chat, and I'll just delete. Today is our first leadership or team, assistant manager training calls. So what I want to do, I want to make sure there, I just typed it in the chat. Okay. So if you guys want to just copy and paste or do whatever you want to do, I'm going to resend that to your district managers. If you know my phone number, just send it to me. And I'll text you and I'll send this information again. But I want to point out that we have our next assistant manager training call is a week from today. And then on the 12th, we have an AM boot camp. So on the 12th, you can see at the very bottom of that message, we have a boot camp that's going to be, am I still sharing screens? I'm not, right? The boot camp is 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on the 12th. So please make all arrangements around shifts that you have at the temple or school or anything you have going on the 12th. It'll be at the Salt Lake City office, of course, which most of you know where it is. Some of you may not. So there's the assistant or the office address on the 12th of April. So if you're a tumbling coach or you have other things going on, try to make arrangements to be there on the 12th of April, 11 to 3. And then, of course, the next 5 weeks. So today's 1. We have 4 more calls Monday nights from 5 to 5:45. Okay. And then lastly, on the 5th of May, I'm getting married. So we won't have our we won't have the training call on that day. It'll be attached to the team meeting on Thursday. I know I made the sale, Calvin. I made the sale. Okay, so so the next 4 more weeks, we have the 5 p.m. call, 5 to 5:45 right now. And then on the 6th week, it won't be on the 5th of May. It'll be on the 8th of May during the team meeting, essentially. Okay. And then there's 2 boot camps. There's the division boot camp on the 12th of April. And then the region boot camp is the 12th and 13th of May. Okay. So that's like after school's out. After school's out is May 12th and 13th, 12th through the 13th. The last thing I want to say is you can write down 2 words. It's startup. And I've got 3 minutes to talk about it. Startup. And I know that Jesse, I think he breezed over the fact that, assistant manager pay is whatever the pay is going to be for you. It will depend on, some people ask that, like, what's my pay? What's the pay? Let me remind you that the assistant manager pay is like a training role. And the point is that we really ask everybody to save, which the prophet Dave Ramsey will tell you to save. And your mom and dad will tell you to save. And, society will tell you should save your money when you're 19 years old, for crying out loud, like put money away in retirement, blah, 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 right? So we're going to ask you at least until you need to cut a check for tuition, at least until you have to cut a check for your first and last month's rent and deposit in August. And we're going to ask you to save a lot of your income for your own benefit. How many of you guys understand if it's in your hand, you probably spend it? I'm that guy, and I understand that. And yet I force myself to save more than I make. Like, hopefully every week of my career as a manager, I'm saving more than my paycheck is, right? Because I make sure I'm over saving, I'm overcompensating to put money away in investment and things like that. And one of those investments is what's called startup. You guys have heard of startup companies. Well, when you run a branch office, the company gives you $6,000. When you're a district manager, they gave you 20-some thousand to run an office. And one of the things they want to do is to make sure you're fiscally responsible, is they ask you to save income, whether that's from selling and or from assistant manager pay, saving that money. For branches, we want you to save $5,000 by the time you run an office. And for districts, we want you to save $10,000 because the company gives you double that, $20,000 to run an office. So having $30,000 to start as a district manager is a pretty good gig, right? Since the company pays you twice of what you save. And so you can save more. Patrick, you have $15,000 saved, or is it $16,000 now, Patrick? And so it's awesome that you can have that money. But assistant manager pay, we usually have you withhold your income, and that makes you sell more, and it makes you like live poor. You know, they say you should live below your means, you know, and things like that. So we'll talk more about that as we go through the next few weeks, but I just want to have it in your mindset for you guys. And awesome job being here. I'm going to go ahead and cut the recording unless there's any questions. I can answer questions. I've got a minute. Anybody have any concepts, questions, or anything like that that are specific or general? Nobody? Was that a
Can I get the video sent to me just so I can take notes off
Sure.
of it?
Absolutely. I'll get it finished up when I get it processed here. That's
What's
great.
the
much.
fastest someone has gone from rep to AM to branch?
Great question. There was a young man named Bucky Homestead. It's not the record, not that I know of, but it's a recent, or not a recent record, but it is something where Bucky was a sales rep in the summer. I didn't talk to him. He wasn't my sales rep. So he started working in my office in December. And then April, 4 months later, he ran an office. So he was only an assistant manager for 4 months. And then he ran an office, did $175,000 as a branch office. So not that you're going to necessarily start an office in September. If you're a district manager, that's possible. Actually, if you're a branch manager also. But if you're an assistant manager this summer, we have Leadership Academy that's designed to help you go through the school year, since a lot of you are in school, and you can run an office the next summer. But we can also open offices sooner than that. Bucky's opened his office in December. Shay opened her office in August. Patrick's planning on running his office in August. So we are looking for his replacement to be the division office manager, to be the top district manager candidate for 2026, if you're going to take Patrick's place. So great question, Bucky. Anybody else? All right, guys, thanks for being here. And we will see you next week.